Today, we're going to take a look at the top 10 best Warden builds I've been playing since the Dark Horizens launch. But before we do, let's go over a few aspects of this video you should be aware of. Every single build on this list makes use of the shield drone. All of the information for these builds will be displayed on one single screen for you to see, after which I'll explain the build choices. None of these are going to be mod-based builds because mod generation has been broken until yesterday at the time of me recording this. Some fun news is no more DPS builds, boys. These all have higher than 50% DR, most much higher than that. Hybrid builds are in, and they're here to stay. And lastly, I do not have a perfect prism to cover for any of these. I'm going to pull up the one I've been working on for basically a week and a half. These are always going to differ player to player, and legendary prisms create a whole new list of builds on their own. So use what you feel is best, only pushing these to be better and better. With all that out of the way, let's check out the 10 best Warden builds I've been trying recently, all of which have been designed to survive and damage your way through Apocalypse boss rush mode. Starting us off, we're going to have the Space Tech. Building into the entire Nerude theme, we have New Age machines doing the work for us. Engineer as prime so we can overclock the turret, Warden as secondary so we get defense and lots of shield. The Profane Heart will grant us excellent lifesteal alongside the new Harvester bots mod. Energy Diverter grants us more damage and crit chance when a shield is active. Atari Booster grants the turret more crit whether you carry it or not. Shade Stone is a free spot to play with if you want something else, but this boosts skill damage for us. Ring of Ordnance means near infinite ammo in the turret and gives you more shield from the drone. Actually a crazy item. When both your skills are stowed, they fully regen energy in seconds. And finally, the Mechanics Cog, making it easier to maneuver and granting an extra bulwark when you heavy carry. All said and done, we have almost 70 DR, very nice damage, and that super flexible dodge Engineer grants just from carrying the turret around. Do be aware that for some of the boss fights, it's going to be better to place the turret down even if we don't want to. When doing so, you have the shield mod and mutator to keep up our defenses. Also, both the impact cannon and the Vulcan work really well depending on the fight, so switch them out as need be. Other than that, you're now the master of Nerude. Next up, we have a max DR half health build called the Grey Beast. Using Alchemist as our prime, we gain 4 total concoctions at a time and a skill that grants 1 free revive for your entire team. The Warden again grants shield and defense as our secondary. Tranquil Heart is very important for really high HP regen, with your main source of damage being Thorn. The Handman's Noose keeps us at half health, granting benefits from both gray health items and 50% HP items. Also prevents gray health removal at all, which eases up the stress usually provided by those builds. Restriction Cord grants us a boost in defense for being at half health. Ring of the Damned grants 20% more to all damage because we're always at 50% gray health. Conservation Seal grants you a 50% chance to not use your relics. Painless Obsidian grants us Bulwark and Haste because of our gray health. Then we want a set of concoctions to keep us under a red weight or flop dodge limit and grant us more armor, giving you a 79.5% DR build with very fast health regen and near infinite relics. The idea is you are the support class for your boss rush team. If you stay vigilant, very rarely will you ever go down, letting you revive at will and use Alchemist to revive instantly when needed. The Crystal Staff deals nice damage like this, and the Mutator keeps you attacking, ignoring Stagger, which feels amazing when in the fray. Finally, Thorn pulls the entire build together. That weapon actually deals really solid damage on its own, letting you still contribute greatly in terms of damage even though you're a pure support build. Make sure to mainly use it on bosses though, as it will damage teammates. And yeah, nice to finally have a gray health build that's easy to use and insanely defensive. Replace the Conservation Ring with Ring of Crisis or Generating Band when playing solo, and have at it. The Shielded Archer. Oh boy, time to put out damage like no other and still survive like the best of them. Hunter as prime for the damage with Warden as our subclass. We have Profane Heart because the new bow does enough damage to always keep you healed this way. Genesis is an absolute powerhouse, but it will need us to do a few things for the fire rate to not feel super sluggish. Zero Divide boosts our range damage and grants infinite ammo, easing up on the lack of ammo this bow offers. Archer's Crest lets you loose arrows quicker. Xania's Malice is a huge boost in damage for weak spot hits. Probability Cord because big crit looks good. And finally, Anastasia's Inspiration. We will need at least 1 point in the regrowth trait to activate this ring, along with the new perception trait to boost haste from 7 to 10%. After the 3rd DLC, haste is now easily the best buff in Remnant 2. It makes every single one of your actions faster, improving rolling, reloading, melee speed, casting speed, literally everything. You will have a much easier time playing the game in general, with it mainly being here to boost the bow's draw speed. I cannot properly explain how good this build is just from the bow. Your damage is disgusting and you can infinitely fire it quick enough enough to stop enemy advancement, but slow enough to keep your damage boost from Shroud. This is one of the best DPS tank hybrids you're gonna get, especially if you use the shielding shot mod anytime you have it. Prior arm charge time is really important of a fragment to have, so do be sure to have that one at least. Enjoy easy mode, because this right here is it. The Shock Striker will make you reminisce about the days when Enigma was top dog. We have Invoker for the elemental damage and better skill usage. Warden for the defense and all-around damage as well. Tranquil is going to pair well with our generating band for high HP regen, and then we want to have on Enigma and the Crystal Staff. Shock Device boosts lightning by a lot. Sapphire Dreamstone keeps Invoker's lightning strike skill always active for you, which is our biggest source of damage. Burden of the Gambler boosts crit chance and damage, which Enigma doesn't deal weak spots anyway, losing us nothing. And the generating band is amazing for health regen when shield is active. Shielded strikes on the staff lets you use it easily from a good range, keeping you shielded up and dealing damage, especially if you get good at charging the staff all the time. Enigma with the charged wounds mutator though is a whole other story. Hold down the button for insane mob clear. This build will grant you so much life regen, it's going to be hard to go down. And if you're playing with friends, no smaller enemies will ever reach your group. When solo, the best damage you have is Wave of Keula. It strikes for over 3,000 crit at times. Be sure to clear smaller enemies away though, as that damage is split among every enemy. For example, this skill doesn't do anything in the hatchery boss fight as there are too many enemies splitting the damage. Against Talratha, however, it was shocking him down to the bone, if he has any. Not the fastest boss killer because Shock takes its time hitting, but you will always get the job done without sweating too much. Enigma is back, boys, there's no doubt about it. I call this one Anger Incarnate. Using Challenger with Rampage as our prime, we get one free revive and loads more damage. Warden is there to activate our amulet and keep us protected. Once again, we're going into life regen with the Tranquil Heart because not needing to take any relics in boss rush mode is an easy way to make it less difficult. The amulet we want is Short Circuit. This will boost your crit chance and damage while cooling down the Rampage skill every 6 seconds. Actually really strong here because Rampage greatly boosts your numbers but takes forever to cool down. Not any longer. Anastasia's Inspiration grants us haste with all our healing sources active. Again, the best buff in the game by far. Zania's Malice for the sweet boost to weak spot damage that's hard to miss with Monarch's tracking. Offering Stone, which works because our gun shoots so quickly. And Probability Cord for more crit damage. I originally had this build centered around Monarch. Such an easy gun to use as it will boost its own damage, similar to Rampage, and eases up on ammo loss as well. But the real kicker is the melee. With haste active and the Harvester Sight's innate ability to speed up its own attacks, you have a ranged melee build in one. You really don't see that every day, which makes this all the more fun to use. The Scythe attacks so fast it's unreal, and keeps you defended with that mutator shielding you all the time. Use the Tech 22 sidearm every once in a while if the drone hasn't shielded you yet, and now you always have your amulet's bonus active. Good to see Monarch back in action, letting us turn off our brains while still never missing a shot. I love this gun, I have to tell you. My new favorite build in the entire game is the Grey Captain. This makes use of Warden as prime for double the shield that it normally offers. Gunslinger as secondary will greatly boost range damage and mainly reload speed. Of all things, we're going to be using the Paper Heart as it fully converts your health into Grey health, which is very important as boss rush mode thinks that Grey health is a debuff and gets rid of it after every boss kill. So we're going to need the Paper Heart to get our Grey health back if it's never patched out. Canine Keepsake is the new most powerful amulet in the game, granting 50% crit chance and damage with another 25% to all damage on top of that. This requires you to be under 50% health as Grey health, but will pretty much stay that way altogether. Painless Obsidian grants haste and bulwark with our Grey health, again giving us a huge boost to combat prowess. Offering Stone boosts all damage when we shoot for a bit. Ring of the Damned boosts all damage with our Grey health, and finally Ring of Omens pairs with our amulet to grant the best dodge in the game, Misty Step. Wow, is this build incredible. We have infinite shield from the mutator on Black Maw and the shield drone, meaning we can actually tank with technically 0 real health. Our Misty Step grants Grey health, activating all our buffs without using the Paper Heart, but it's there when we need it. And best of all, every buff from our rings boosts all damage. That means status, melee, ranged, and mods all deal ridiculously high damage. You can dodge anything with ease, tank when need be, and deal amazing damage whether it be weak spot or not. Heck, just take one look at this battle with Talratha. I was moving in and out so quickly, he even got stunned. Like, this is seriously the best build I've ever made. I cannot recommend it more. And if you get really really into it, the build works with just the Warden class, letting you swap your secondary to Hunter, Challenger, or whatever else. It is truly insane. Just be sure not to increase your health regen at all, or that will make it harder to keep your gray health active at all times. Misty Step will never die, and now it's better than we ever thought possible. Meet the all-powerful Havoc Lord, a play on the OP Havoc build from the last DLC, but much more defensive. We have Warden as prime for the large boost in shield. Archon will be secondary for the mod boosts, and the skill Havoc, of course. Profane Heart is always best when running with active mods because they work for you. Then we want to run the standard Monolith Nebula combo you've probably seen a million times because they can damage enemies while you're in your skill. Short Circuit makes a comeback because this is excellent for damage and regenning the Havoc form much more quickly. Actually kind of made for this skill if you think about it. Token of Favor boosts damage and crit when the Sandstorm mod is active. Braided Thorns boosts our crit chance by 10%. Burden of the Gambler boosts crit chance and damage. Then we have Kinetic Cycle Stone to boost casting speed of the mods and Havoc form's damage as well. This is a very easy concept that works far better than I expected. Activate both of your gun's mods and then enter Havoc form. Now you have crazy lifesteal, shield, and damage in general. When your skill runs out, you let the amulet work for you to cool down Havoc. Regen your mods in the process to repeat over and over. Only problem you may have is running out of shield when your drone is recharging. An easy fix is to take one of those relics you don't even need. Warden's perk grants shield on relic use, making it foolproof. I also messed around with swapping the Kinetic Cycle Ring for Sapphire Dreamstone. It regens your skill much faster, but damage took a hit. So play around with it and do what feels right to you. They can try and nerf Havoc form as much as they want, but we'll still get the old gal pumping out damage like no other. I am incredibly proud to show you one of my new favorite builds, the Savior. We're going to want Hunter as primary for the damage and Warden for the shield. Again, go Tranquil Heart, making it easy to heal without taking relics. Insulation Driver grants us haste and an extra 15% to damage because Warden grants us a Bulwark stack when the drone is active. Tolerance Band makes firing Savior faster and extremely easy to perfect charge. Feathery Binding boosts charge speed because we have haste active for the best buff. Closed Loop grants us shield all the time as charged shots from Savior now accumulate to stuff. And then we have Braided Thorns to help Savior crit more often. The intricacies of this build just make me so happy. Our amulet boosts Savior and the fire damage from its mod. The amulet also activates one of our rings. It's perfect, which is kind of funny because I'd never used this amulet before. Savior on its own, it deals insane damage. No buffs even needed. So we can get it to fire almost instantly and still see over 4,000 weak spot crit more often than not. Only problem I was having was, man, Savior eats through its own ammo in like 10 seconds. To rectify this, I use Refunder as the mutator on the MP60. This makes half your shots from the SMG generate ammo in Savior, and it actually works really well for those times when no red bricks are spawning. Now, if you're worried about having no ad clear, don't, because Savior's mod spreads out damage to everything when you shoot a single target. I originally was hating on this gun in the past, but now it's just beautiful. I was using the Bolt Driver as my sidearm, but it doesn't pair well with a Refunder mutator, so keep that in mind. I like to call this build Second Chances. We've got Handler as prime for more range damage and melee damage, plus a free revive from the dog every 2 minutes. The Warden then uses shield to activate our healing method. Both classes can have their minions sent out to teammates at will, making this huge for a co-op playthrough if that's your thing. The Whispering Marble grants Bulwark and more damage per Bulwark stack. Drag Clay Ring does the same, granting us the full 5 stacks of Bulwark when our drone is active. Black Cat Band offers 1 free death hit, which builds into the theme. Generating Band grants us our source of healing, which, trust me, will be more than enough to heal you up. And then the Ring of Crisis stops you from dying by shielding you at the last second if your HP gets too low. This is such a cool build idea for players who truly aren't as good at dodging, or maybe play more co-op and hate letting other players down. First off, the new Gossamer Heart, which I guess is what it's called, should make it easier to dodge attacks. How the heck you would even test an item like this, I have no idea, but in theory, it makes avoiding damage easier. You don't even need to use it, and evading is 1 window frame better. This also lets us save relics for reviving teammates, as you won't take any hardly at all. If that method doesn't work for you, then the Ring of Crisis will stop you from dying by activating your shield and boosting HP regen with the band. If those 2 methods don't work, the Black Cat Ring grants a free death hit. If somehow you get past those 3 firewalls, then the dog revives you upon being downed. Good luck dying with this build. You would actually have to try to get downed. All the while, you can heal your dog with relics or the new repair tool. Damage is a little lower than most builds, but Plasma Cutter can pick up the slack, especially when weak spots are easily available. This build is overkill, I get it, but that's also kind of the point. You can easily play solo and give yourself as many chances as possible possible, or go with a team while supporting their damage and defense. 67% DR ain't too shabby, and from now on, your teammates won't be able to blame you when things go south. Our last Warden build for today is called Laser Fist, and you probably already know why. You can use either the Warden or Challenger class as primary or secondary. It doesn't actually matter much. I chose Warden to keep shields up more often, but a free revive is nice from Challenger as well. Now this build relies heavily on the new Dark Matter gauntlets, specifically using the beam attack for ideally 100% of combat. Unfortunately, the beam attack has been really inconsistent with what items buff it, especially after the recent patch, so bear with me here. The Tarnished Ring does seem to boost the laser attack after the recent patch, although getting this is terrible and incredibly reliant on really bad RNG, so the Fey Warrior Ring can work well instead if need be. Haymaker's Ring boosts melee damage by a good amount because we are overweight, and Burden of the Mason boosts melee damage by 35% but does put us in a heavy dodge. Hypercharger was the best mutator for these gauntlets without question, however my testing after the patch had them doing nothing for the laser beam, so the tricky part is which mutator is best. Shielded Strike does work, granting shield for surviving attacks. Edgelord does work as well for more lifesteal and faster charging of the laser. Overdrive is the best for a huge boost in damage, but my personal choice was Steadfast. This grants some defense and a charged attack and makes it so you can't be staggered out of the laser. When the Juggernaut skill is active, you already don't stagger, but when always using the laser beam, you'll just have a lot more fun not getting knocked in general. Sparkfire with the Maelstrom mutator is the fastest mod regen in the game, letting you pop out more shield when need be. Most importantly, be sure to use Boar on the build. The laser does hit weak spot, which gives it absurd damage. This build is stupid strong in co-op, while much more difficult to pull off solo. It is possible, I even beat Annihilation with it, and the damage is pretty good in general, while easy to use. But just be aware, in co-op, you can use a more damage-based mutator and be way safer. But I mean, launching a massive laser across the map at every enemy in your path is well worth a try either way. There's actually nothing quite like it. And there you have the top 10 best Warden builds I've tried so far. All of these feel very unique compared to things we've been playing for some time now. Warden in general just opens up so many build opportunities. Unfortunately, we only saw the shield version in this video as it's just the best option. The turret skill is heavily underperforming, almost not being worth using at all, and the healing drone is good, but shield happens to be far better. Doesn't really matter though, because shield is finally king, and hybrid builds are now ready to take over. Do be aware that my prism was mostly set up for gunplay, even with it at only like level 15 or something. So push that towards any of these builds optimally and you can get way more out of each of them. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and again, every single build is displayed with everything you need, so feel free to use the timestamps down below for future reference. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.